Imagine if I told you that the biggest obstacle standing between you and success is not your lack of talent, not your background, not even failure, but the way you've programmed your own mind. Every single day, we repeat thoughts that either build us or quietly destroy our potential. The truth is this: success does not begin when your circumstances change. It begins the moment your thinking changes. If you can reprogram the way you think, you can completely change the direction of your life. Most people spend their lives chasing success by focusing on what they want. They say, I want to become rich. I want a better career. I want good grades. I want respect. I want success. And on the surface, that sounds completely normal. We all have goals. We all want something better for ourselves. But here is the problem. When you only focus on what you want, your motivation becomes weak. The moment things become difficult, the moment life challenges you, the moment progress slows down, you begin to question everything. You lose energy, you lose focus, and many people eventually quit. The reason this happens is simple. A goal by itself is not powerful enough to carry you through struggle. What truly gives people strength is understanding why they are doing it in the first place. This idea is deeply connected to what Simon Sinek teaches in Start With Why. He explains that extraordinary people and successful organizations do not begin by thinking about what they do. They begin by understanding why they do it. Their purpose comes first. Their reason comes first. And once that reason becomes clear, everything else begins to align around it. Think about it for a moment. Imagine a student who says, I want to get good grades. That sounds like a goal. But now imagine another student who says, I want to get good grades because I want to create a future where my family never has to struggle financially again. I want to prove to myself that I can become the person I dream of becoming. Both students may be studying the same subjects, sitting in the same classroom, and reading the same books. But when challenges appear, the second student has something much stronger driving them. The second student has a reason that creates emotional energy. That reason becomes fuel. Your mind works in a very interesting way. It follows meaning more than instructions. If you wake up every morning telling yourself only I need success, your brain does not feel deeply connected to that statement. It sounds distant and empty. But when you remind yourself, I am doing this because I want freedom, I want growth, I want to change my family's future, I want to build something meaningful, suddenly your mind begins to focus differently. You stop seeing work as pain and begin seeing it as part of a larger mission. This is where mental reprogramming begins. The first step is not changing your habits immediately. It is changing your internal reason for action. Many people fail not because they are lazy or untalented. They fail because they are disconnected from purpose. They are running toward goals they never emotionally connected with. And when your heart is disconnected from your actions, consistency becomes impossible. Look at people who achieve extraordinary things. Athletes train for years under pressure. Entrepreneurs face failure repeatedly. Artists spend endless hours practicing when nobody notices them. From the outside, people often say, they are so disciplined. But discipline is usually not where it begins. It begins with purpose. It begins with a reason powerful enough to make sacrifice feel worthwhile. When your why becomes bigger than your excuses, excuses lose power over you. Many of us spend too much time copying other people's dreams. Society tells us what success should look like. Social media shows us money, luxury, fame, and status. So people begin chasing these things without asking themselves an important question. Do I truly know why I want this? Sometimes we are pursuing goals that were never really ours. And if the dream is borrowed, the motivation will disappear quickly. Real success begins when you become honest with yourself and discover what genuinely matters to you. Ask yourself difficult questions. Why do I want to become successful? What kind of life am I trying to build? Who am I doing this for? What future am I fighting for? What impact do I want to leave behind? These questions may seem simple, but the answers have the power to transform the way you think. Once your purpose becomes clear, your brain stops wasting energy on confusion. It becomes directed. It becomes intentional. Success is never simply about talent. There are talented people everywhere who never accomplish their full potential. The difference is often clarity of purpose. When you know exactly why you are moving forward, obstacles stop feeling like reasons to quit. They begin to feel like part of the journey. Fear becomes smaller. Doubt becomes weaker. Challenges become temporary. At the end of the day, your life moves in the direction of what drives you internally. If your motivation is shallow, your commitment will be shallow. But if your reason is powerful, your determination becomes powerful. Before asking yourself what you want from life, ask yourself why it matters. Because the moment you discover your why, your mind begins working differently. Your focus sharpens. Your energy changes. Your actions become stronger. And that is where real success begins, not with talent, not with luck, but with a purpose so clear that your mind has no choice but to move forward. Every person on this planet lives inside two worlds at the same time. One is the world outside us, the people we meet, the opportunities we receive, the challenges we face, and the situations life puts in front of us. But the second world, and often the more powerful one, is the world inside our minds. It is the silent conversation we have with ourselves every single day. Most people underestimate how much this inner conversation shapes their future. The truth is, the story you repeatedly tell yourself becomes the foundation of your identity. Over time, your mind begins to accept that story as reality, whether it helps you grow or keeps you trapped. From the moment we are young, we begin collecting beliefs about who we are. Sometimes those beliefs come from family, sometimes from school, sometimes from failure, criticism, rejection, or painful experiences. A child who repeatedly hears, "You are not smart enough," may slowly begin believing intelligence is something they do not possess. Someone who experiences repeated failure may start telling themselves, "I am just not capable of succeeding." Another person who faces rejection may convince themselves people like me never get opportunities. The dangerous part is that these thoughts do not stay temporary. The brain learns through repetition, and repeated thoughts begin turning into permanent beliefs. This is why changing your life begins with changing the story you tell yourself. You may think words are harmless because they exist only in your mind, but your brain does not treat repeated thoughts like imagination. It treats them like instructions. If every day you repeat, "I am not good enough," your mind begins acting as if that statement is true. You hesitate more often. You avoid opportunities. You fear challenges because deep inside you have already accepted failure as part of your code. Not because failure is certain, but because you programmed your mind to expect it. Think about how powerful this really is. Two people can face the exact same situation and react completely differently, not because one is naturally stronger than the other, but because their internal story is different. One person sees difficulty and thinks, "This proves I am not capable." The other person sees difficulty and thinks, "This is teaching me how to improve." The challenge itself is identical, but the interpretation changes everything. That interpretation comes from the language you use with yourself. Many people unknowingly become prisoners of their own words. They say things like, "I always mess things up. I can never stay disciplined. I am terrible at public speaking. I am unlucky. I am not talented enough. I do not have what successful people have." These statements may feel small in the moment, but over time, they become mental programming. Eventually, the brain stops questioning these thoughts and starts building behavior around them. If you believe you are bad at something, you stop trying. If you stop trying, you never improve. And because you never improve, your old belief feels true, even though it was your belief itself that created the outcome. The key to changing this pattern is understanding that thoughts are habits. Just as physical habits can be changed, mental habits can also be rewritten. The first step is awareness. Start paying attention to how you speak to yourself when things go wrong. Notice what happens after failure, after embarrassment, after rejection. Do you immediately attack yourself with negative language, or do you give yourself permission to learn and grow? Most people are kinder to strangers than they are to themselves. They encourage others during struggle but criticize themselves mercilessly. Reprogramming your mind requires replacing destructive language with constructive language. This does not mean pretending life is easy or lying to yourself. It means choosing thoughts that create progress instead of limitation. Instead of saying, "I always fail," say, "I am learning through failure." Instead of saying, "I cannot do this," say, "I have not mastered this yet." Instead of saying, "I am not confident," say, "Confidence grows through practice." These small changes seem insignificant, but repeated daily, they begin changing how your brain responds to challenge. This process takes time, because the mind naturally follows familiar patterns. Negative beliefs built over years will not disappear overnight, but every new thought you repeat becomes a new instruction to your brain. Over time, new beliefs begin replacing old ones. You start approaching opportunities differently. You take more risks. You become more willing to learn. You stop defining yourself by temporary failure and begin seeing yourself as someone capable of growth. The most successful people are not necessarily people who never experience doubt. They simply refuse to let doubt define their identity. They understand that the voice inside their head can either become their greatest weapon or times their biggest enemy. Every achievement begins internally before it becomes visible externally. Long before success appears in reality, it first exists in belief. Your future is being shaped right now by the words you repeat daily. If your internal story is filled with fear, limitation, and self-doubt, your actions will reflect that story. But if you begin speaking to yourself with belief, resilience, and possibility, your actions will begin changing as well. Never underestimate this truth. Your mind is always listening. The language you use with yourself becomes the blueprint for your future. Change the story, and slowly, you change the person you become. And when you change the person you become, you change the life you create. One of the biggest misunderstandings people have about success is believing that motivation is the thing that creates achievement. People often wait for a feeling before they take action. They tell themselves, "I'll start when I feel ready. I'll begin tomorrow when I have more energy. I'll work harder when I feel inspired." And at first, this way of thinking feels reasonable because motivation feels powerful. When you watch an inspiring video, hear a great speech from someone like Simon Sinek, or imagine a better future for yourself, you feel energized. In that moment, you believe you can do anything. But there is one problem with motivation. It is temporary. It comes and goes. It rises with excitement and disappears when life becomes uncomfortable. If your success depends only on motivation, then your progress depends on emotions. And emotions are never stable enough to build extraordinary results. Think about how most people approach goals. On the first day, they feel excited. They create a plan, make promises to themselves, and imagine how different their future will become. For a short period, they work hard because the excitement is fresh. But then reality arrives. The work becomes repetitive. Progress slows down. Results do not come immediately. Fatigue begins to appear. Suddenly that powerful feeling they called motivation disappears. And once motivation disappears, so does action. This is exactly why so many people start strong but fail to continue. They built their habits on emotion instead of discipline. Discipline is different because discipline does not ask how you feel. Discipline does not depend on excitement. Discipline is the decision to continue acting even when you are tired, bored, frustrated, or discouraged. It means understanding that some days you will feel powerful and inspired, while other days you will feel completely drained, but your commitment remains the same. Successful people are not successful because they wake up every morning feeling motivated. In reality, many days they probably feel exactly like everyone else. The difference is they train themselves to act regardless of emotion. This is one of the most important mental shifts you can make if you want to reprogram your mind for success. Stop asking yourself whether you feel motivated and start asking yourself whether you are committed. Motivation asks for comfort. Discipline demands consistency. Motivation waits for the perfect mood. Discipline creates progress even in imperfect moments. Motivation says, "I will do it when I feel ready." Discipline says, "I will do it because I said I would." That difference may seem small, but over time, it separates people who dream from people who achieve. Imagine an athlete training for competition. There are days when energy feels high and training feels exciting. But there are also days when the body feels exhausted, when muscles hurt, when sleep was poor, and when quitting feels easier than continuing. If that athlete only trained on days they felt motivated, they would never become great. Growth happens when action continues beyond emotion. The same principle applies to every area of life. Students who succeed do not study only when they feel inspired. Entrepreneurs do not work only when excitement is high. Writers do not create only when creativity magically appears. Progress is built by repetition, not by temporary emotional highs. The human brain naturally seeks comfort. It prefers easy choices because easy choices require less energy. This is why discipline feels difficult at first. Every time you force yourself to do something uncomfortable, your brain resists. It says rest today. Skip the work. You can start tomorrow. But here is what many people do not realize. Every time you ignore that voice and continue acting, you are literally training your mind to become stronger. You are teaching yourself that action is not controlled by feelings. Over time, what once felt difficult begins feeling normal. Small acts of discipline compound over time. Waking up when you promised yourself you would wake up. Finishing work even when distractions appear. Continuing practice even when progress feels invisible. Staying committed when nobody is watching. These actions may seem ordinary in the moment, but repeated consistently, they create extraordinary transformation. Success rarely comes from one massive decision. More often, it is the result of small disciplined actions repeated over months and years. Many people search endlessly for motivation because they believe motivation is the secret to money. They consume inspirational content every day, hoping to feel energized again. But inspiration without discipline becomes addiction. You feel good temporarily, but nothing changes in reality. Real transformation happens when you stop depending on emotional excitement and begin building habits that function independently of your feelings. There will always be days when you feel doubt. There will always be moments when exhaustion makes quitting seem attractive. There will be times when results come slower than expected and frustration becomes overwhelming. But discipline allows you to continue moving forward even during those moments. And ironically, action often creates motivation. People think motivation creates action, but very often the opposite is true. The moment you begin working, momentum starts building, confidence starts growing, and motivation returns naturally. If you truly want success, understand this deeply. Feelings are unreliable, but habits are powerful. Stop waiting to feel inspired before you move. Build a mindset where action becomes automatic. Because winners are not people who feel motivated all the time. Winners are people who learn to continue, even when motivation disappears. The moment you stop depending on feelings and start trusting discipline, you begin taking control of your future. And that is when real success begins to take shape. Many people believe success is created entirely by personal effort. They think if they work hard enough, stay focused enough, and push themselves enough, they will eventually reach their goals. Hard work absolutely matters. But there is another factor that quietly shapes who you become every single day, and most people underestimate its power. That factor is your environment. The truth is that your mind does not develop in isolation. It is constantly being influenced by the people around you, the conversations you hear, the habits you observe, the content you consume, and the emotional energy that surrounds your daily life. Whether you realize it or not, your environment is programming the way you think. If you want to reprogram your mind for success, you must pay close attention to what is influencing you every day. This idea connects strongly with what Simon Sinek often teaches about human behavior and leadership, especially in Leaders Eat Last, where he explains that people perform at their highest level when they exist in environments built on trust, safety, and support. Human beings are deeply affected by the spaces they occupy. When the environment around us is healthy, encouraging, and growth-oriented, we naturally perform better. But when negativity, fear, criticism, and unhealthy habits dominate our surroundings, our potential begins shrinking without us even noticing. Think about how powerful social influence really is. If you spend most of your time with people who constantly complain about life, blame others for their problems, avoid responsibility, and speak negatively about ambition, over time their mindset begins affecting you. At first you may believe their attitude has no impact, but the brain is constantly absorbing patterns. Repeated exposure to negativity slowly normalizes negative thinking. You begin doubting yourself more often. You become more comfortable with excuses. You stop expecting excellence because mediocrity has become the standard around you. The people around you may never directly tell you to fail, but their mindset quietly lowers your expectations for yourself. The opposite is equally true. When you surround yourself with people who challenge themselves, who take responsibility, who believe in growth, and who actively work toward improving their lives, their energy begins influencing your own behavior. Suddenly, discipline feels more natural because it is part of your environment. Ambition feels normal instead of unusual. Growth becomes expected rather than optional. This is why people often say you become similar to the people you spend the most time with. It is not simply a motivational phrase. It reflects how human psychology works. We unconsciously adapt to the standards that surround us. But environment is not only about people. In today's world, environment also includes everything you allow into your mind through technology. Consider how much time people spend consuming content every day. Social media, videos, entertainment, endless scrolling, constant comparison with others. Every piece of content you consume sends messages to your brain. If most of what you consume encourages distraction, comparison, insecurity, negativity, or unrealistic expectations, your mind slowly absorbs those patterns. You may wonder why focus feels difficult, why confidence feels unstable, or why anxiety feels stronger than before. But often the answer is hidden in what you feed your mind daily. Your mind works much like the body. If someone eats unhealthy food constantly, physical health eventually suffers. The same principle applies mentally. If you consistently feed your brain negative influences, destructive conversations, meaningless distractions, and unhealthy emotional energy, mental clarity begins deteriorating. But if you feed your mind with knowledge, learning, discipline, positive influences, and meaningful conversations, your thinking becomes sharper and stronger. Mental growth depends heavily on mental nutrition. Sometimes protecting your environment requires making uncomfortable decisions. It may mean spending less time with people whose habits constantly pull you backward. It may mean reducing exposure to digital distractions that steal your focus. It may mean creating routines that place you in spaces designed for growth rather than comfort. Many people want transformation while remaining surrounded by the exact conditions that created their old mindset. But change becomes difficult when the environment constantly reinforces old behavior. You cannot build a disciplined mind while living inside constant distraction. You cannot build confidence while constantly exposing yourself to negativity. You cannot expect success while repeatedly placing yourself in environments that encourage average thinking. One of the most powerful ways to reprogram your mind is to intentionally design your mind. Choose carefully what conversations you allow around you. Choose carefully what content enters your mind every day. Choose carefully whose opinions you allow to influence your decisions. Seek people who challenge you to improve rather than people who make excuses comfortable. Spend time learning from individuals who demonstrate the qualities you want to develop. Build routines that remove unnecessary distractions and create space for focused work. Success is rarely an individual battle fought entirely through willpower. Often success is the result of living inside an environment that consistently supports growth. The strongest people understand they cannot control everything life throws at them, but they can control what influences their thinking every day. They guard their mental space carefully because they understand that repeated exposure shapes identity. If you truly want to change your future, stop focusing only on changing yourself internally and begin examining what surrounds you externally. Ask yourself whether the people around you inspire growth or encourage limitation. Ask whether the content you consume strengthens your thinking or weakens your focus. Ask whether your daily environment supports the person you want to become. Because in the end, your environment is always programming your mind. And if you want success, one of the smartest decisions you can make is protecting your mind by choosing carefully what you allow to shape it. One of the biggest reasons people fail to reach their potential is not because they lack intelligence, talent, or opportunity. Very often, they fail because they expect success to happen far too quickly. We live in a world that constantly teaches us to seek immediate results. We have become surrounded by systems designed around speed. Information arrives instantly. Entertainment is available instantly. Communication happens instantly. And because of this, many people begin expecting personal growth and success to work the same way. People want transformation immediately. They want confidence after a few days of effort, success after a few weeks of work, and recognition before they have truly developed the skills required to earn it. But success does not operate on the timeline of impatience. If you want to reprogram your mind for success, one of the most important changes you must make is learning how to think long-term. This idea strongly connects with the philosophy that Simon Sinek explains in The Infinite Game. He argues that too many people approach life as if everything is a short competition where quick victories matter most. They focus only on immediate wins, temporary rewards, and short-term results. But the people who create lasting success understand that life is not a short race. It is an ongoing journey that rewards consistency, patience, and endurance over long periods of time. They stop measuring progress by what happens this week or this month and begin understanding that meaningful growth often takes years. Think about how often people quit simply because progress feels invisible. Someone starts exercising, and after 2 weeks, they become frustrated because their body has not changed dramatically. A student begins learning a difficult skill, but loses confidence because improvement feels slower than expected. A person starts building a business, but after facing repeated setbacks, they begin believing success may never come. In many of these situations, failure is not caused by inability. Failure happens because impatience convinces people that slow progress means no progress. They mistake temporary discomfort for permanent defeat. The reality is that almost everything valuable in life requires time. A tree does not grow overnight. Strong relationships are not built instantly. Expertise is not developed in a few days. Confidence does not suddenly appear after one successful experience. Real growth happens gradually, often so gradually that you cannot immediately notice the change while it is happening. This is where mental reprogramming becomes essential. You must train yourself to stop obsessing over immediate outcomes and begin trusting long-term development. One of the most dangerous habits people develop is constantly comparing themselves to others. Social media has made this problem even stronger. Every day, people see images of success, wealth, achievements, and lifestyles that appear extraordinary. What they often forget is that they are only seeing visible results, not the invisible years of struggle behind those results. Someone sees a successful entrepreneur and thinks success happened quickly. Someone sees a talented speaker and assumes confidence came naturally. Someone sees a top athlete and believes greatness was immediate. But behind almost every visible success story are years of quiet effort, repeated failure, frustration, and persistence that nobody saw. When your mind becomes obsessed with speed, frustration begins controlling your emotions. You start believing that if success is not arriving quickly enough, something must be wrong with you. Doubt begins growing. Confidence weakens. Motivation fades. Eventually, many people quit, not because success was impossible, but because their expectations were unrealistic. They expected a harvest without giving enough time for growth. Thinking long-term changes your relationship with difficulty. Instead of seeing setbacks as proof of failure, you begin seeing them as part of development. Imagine learning to play a musical instrument. During the first few months, progress may feel painfully slow. Mistakes happen constantly. Improvement feels invisible. But someone who thinks short-term becomes discouraged quickly. Someone who thinks long-term understands that every imperfect practice session is quietly building future skill. The same principle applies to every goal in life. The work you do today may not create visible rewards immediately, but invisible growth is happening beneath the surface. The strongest people understand that success is not built through dramatic moments. It is built through small, consistent actions repeated long enough to create transformation. Reading 10 pages every day may seem insignificant today, but over several years it creates deep knowledge. Practicing a skill for 1 hour each day may feel ordinary, but over time, mastery begins developing. Saving a small amount of money consistently may not feel exciting, but eventually financial freedom begins forming. Long-term thinking teaches you to respect the power of gradual progress. Reprogramming your mind for success means learning patience in a world addicted to speed. It means understanding that discomfort today does not mean failure tomorrow. It means trusting effort even when results are not immediately visible. The people who succeed are often not the smartest or most talented. Very often they are simply the people willing to stay committed longer than everyone else. Stop asking yourself how quickly success will arrive. Ask yourself whether you are willing to continue even when results take longer than expected. Stop measuring progress only by visible rewards and begin appreciating invisible growth. Remember that every great achievement is the result of consistency sustained over time. Success is rarely about moving fast. More often, success belongs to those who refuse to stop moving. The moment you stop chasing immediate rewards and begin thinking in years instead of days, your entire mindset changes. And once your mind learns patience, you become far more powerful than those who give up simply because success did not come quickly enough. One of the greatest traps that prevents people from achieving success is the belief that they must feel completely ready before they begin. Many people spend years waiting for the perfect moment. They tell themselves, I will start when I have more confidence. I will begin when I know enough. I will take action when I feel prepared. I will chase my dream when fear disappears. On the surface, this seems logical because human beings naturally want certainty before stepping into the unknown. We want guarantees. We want to know that our effort will succeed before we risk failure. But the truth is that waiting to feel ready is one of the biggest reasons people remain stuck. If you truly want to reprogram your mind for success, you must understand one powerful reality. Confidence does not come before action. Confidence is created because of action. Most people imagine successful individuals as people who always knew exactly what they were doing. They look at entrepreneurs, athletes, leaders, speakers, artists, and assume these people began their journey with certainty and confidence already built inside them. But that is rarely true. Behind every successful person is a long period of uncertainty. There was a moment when they had doubts. There was a moment when they lacked experience. There was a moment when fear was present. The difference is not that successful people never feel fear. The difference is that they learn how to move forward even while fear exists. They stop waiting for confidence and begin building confidence through experience. This is something often reflected in the thinking of Simon Sinek. Growth does not happen while standing still and waiting for certainty. Growth begins the moment you choose to step into discomfort. Too many people believe confidence is something you must possess before acting, but confidence behaves very differently. Confidence is not a requirement for action. It is a reward that action produces over time. The more you do difficult things, the more evidence your brain collects that you are capable of handling challenges. And with each new experience, confidence begins growing naturally. Think about a child learning how to walk. A child does not wait until perfect balance exists before taking the first step. The child moves forward awkwardly, falls repeatedly, struggles constantly, and through repeated attempts, gradually learns stability. Imagine if the child thought the way many adults think. Imagine the child saying, I will walk once I feel completely confident that I will not fall. Walking would never happen. Progress only becomes possible because action comes first, even when failure remains likely. The same pattern exists throughout life. A person afraid of public speaking often believes they need confidence before standing and walk in front of an audience. But confidence in speaking does not appear magically beforehand. Confidence develops only after repeated speaking experiences. An entrepreneur may believe they need certainty before starting a business. But business knowledge grows through real-world mistakes, not endless preparation. A student may think they need perfect understanding before attempting difficult work. But understanding often deepens through struggling with the challenge itself. In almost every area of life, waiting for readiness delays growth indefinitely. Fear often disguises itself as preparation. People convince themselves they are being responsible by delaying action. They say they need more knowledge, better timing, more resources, or perfect conditions. Sometimes preparation is necessary, but often endless preparation becomes an excuse to avoid discomfort. Deep down, many people are not waiting for readiness. They are trying to avoid the possibility of failure. But avoiding failure also means avoiding growth. Every meaningful achievement in life requires stepping into uncertainty before certainty exists. Your brain naturally resists unfamiliar experiences because unfamiliarity feels dangerous. This is part of human survival instinct. The mind prefers what feels safe, predictable, and comfortable. But if comfort controls your decisions, growth becomes impossible. Reprogramming your mind for success means training yourself to act despite discomfort. It means understanding that fear is not always a signal to stop. Sometimes, fear simply means you are approaching something important. The first action often feels the hardest because your brain lacks evidence that success is possible. But once you begin, something important happens. Experience starts replacing imagination. Often, the fear you imagined becomes far greater than the reality itself. The challenge that once looked overwhelming becomes manageable because now you are actively engaging with it instead of only thinking about it. Action breaks mental paralysis. The moment movement begins, your brain starts adapting. Every successful person has learned this lesson. Nobody begins as an expert. Nobody starts with perfect confidence. Nobody has complete certainty about the future. Success belongs to people willing to begin before they feel completely ready. They understand that waiting forever guarantees stagnation, while imperfect action creates opportunity. If you continue waiting for confidence before acting, you may spend years watching opportunities disappear while convincing yourself the timing is not right. But if you choose to act now, even imperfectly, even nervously, even while doubting yourself, you begin building the very confidence you thought you needed beforehand. Action teaches lessons that thinking alone never can. Experience creates strength that preparation alone cannot provide. Remember this deeply. You do not become confident and then take action. You take action, struggle through uncertainty, learn from experience, and confidence follows. The future does not belong to people who wait for perfect conditions. It belongs to people willing to move before certainty exists. The moment you stop waiting to feel ready and choose to act despite fear, your mind begins transforming, and that single decision can change the entire direction of your life.